Hello, everyone. It's my personal pleasure to talk about the new Ringo Starr album that just came out on October 25th of this year. Brand new, so you can go get it. Before I tell you about the album itself, I want to tell you that I really wanted to be able to get the vinyl copy to show here for this particular video. Every time I make a review video, I like to have the actual LP in the vinyl to show you. But there's been some kind of a problem. A lot of people have not been able to get the vinyl yet. For some reason, it's been delayed. There's all kinds of distribution problems I'm noticing from different stores in my area. And I think some of you got it out there, and congratulations. And this is the CD, of course. This is brand new from Ringo Starr. Now, when you look at this, the first thing you're going to think to yourself, for those who've been around for a while for Ringo, they're going to say, it's the same old thing, right? There's Ringo with his dark shades on. There's a star in the background. He's doing his patented peace and love. And what's so different about it, right? Same thing with the back. You've got a generic star there. When you open it up, the CD itself has a star. And if you want to see what's behind it, sometimes there's a nice design or something. You just get another replica of the same thing on the CD. It's got, I won't even use the word booklet because what's in here is not really a book. Just a couple of pages. And there's Ringo sporting yet another peace sign. And we have just basically who plays on every song, no lyrics or anything like that. So that's kind of disappointing. I don't know if the vinyl copy is going to be any more elaborate than this. We'll find out about it. But that's just a small thing, because what we want to do is we want to get on to the music itself. And I'm going to tell you that, with kind of tipping my hand here right at the beginning and telling you the general vibe of having this album, that I generally think this is a fantastic Ringo album. So far, the early feelings out here, the early vibes from the fans. I don't know about the critics yet. I haven't checked them out, but the fans are really, for the most part, liking this particular record. And it's Ringo's 20th studio album since 1970. Yeah, he's getting up there with Paul McCartney, not quite there yet. I've listened to this now, I want to say, 7 or 8 times. So it's really become embedded in my psyche. And it didn't take very long. I mean, I enjoyed what I heard for the most part after the very first listen. By the second listen, I was already hooked, and there were enough catchy phrases, melodic tunes that are earworms, things that stay with you. So I pretty much liked it even on the second listen, and after going 7 or 8 times, I've got it really committed to memory. This is a very positive album for the most part, very upbeat. And the way the world is today, we could use a lot of positivity. I mean, things are really crazy, and it's been that way now for a couple of decades. But Ringo has a good spirit, and even though it can be kind of cliche at times with his peace signs and this and that, and spread love and peace and all that, I got to tell you, it comes across so good here. This is a very short album. It's 35 minutes, it's 30 plus minutes, something like that, 35 minutes. And it goes by in a breeze. You'll start the album, you'll enjoy it, and then before you know it, it'll be over. And what I could say is unique about this, I've liked a lot of Ringo albums in the past, recent albums. The last one that came out in 2017, Give More Love, I really thought was one of his best albums in a while. I thought it was a good album. But yet I was content to play that album 2, 3, 4 times, then kind of shelve it, and then maybe go back weeks later, months later, pull it out again. This one, I find myself listening to it in my car, constant rotation. I can't get enough of this record, and I can't remember the last time that ever happened. So I'm going to go out on a limb before I get to the individual songs that I'll go through and tell you that I'm prepared already to say that this album, What's My Name by Ringo Starr in 2019, is probably his best album since Time Takes Time from 1992. The sequencing on the songs, I think, is perfect. There's been some, debate. Everybody's got their opinion, and that's fine. They wanted certain songs maybe to appear elsewhere. I think they did a great job where they put all the songs. It's a very smooth flow. This is kind of a, except for one song, which I'll get to, I consider this to be a very relentless, rocking, upbeat, positive, uplifting album in a lot of ways. And only at one point does it really kind of, go down as far as the pace of the record. Okay, the drums here from Ringo. Ringo drums on every song, plays drums, percussion. absolutely great. They're thunderous. They're up front. They're tight. Um, Fans have been saying, and I've said this myself. I agree with it. For a long time now, Ringo's albums of the last 20 years or so, something like that, have been kind of sounding the same. Even though some of them are pleasant, and some of them have some good tracks on them, it's a very sameness. There's no differentiation. People are wanting Ringo to do something a little bit different. And because of the production on here, which, if you looked at a video I did, which was an early impressions video, I said the production was kind of, I don't know what word to use, kind of overlayered. Maybe like Ringo's voice is a little too far in the background. On this particular one now, I think what makes it different is that the production by Ringo himself actually complements the record. I really think that it gives it a little bit of a different sound than what we're used to, and that in itself sets it apart from the familiarity and the same old feel to a lot of Ringo's albums. So it sounds different. Now, Ringo likes to record his albums in his own home studio. He's been doing that seemingly forever now. And although that's the same formula, although it's the same setup, and he uses a lot of the same people here, Joe Walsh, Steve Lukather, Edgar Winter, his usual group of friends, that he works with. This really sounds like something out of the ordinary, and I'm really happy about that. So let's go into the tracks themselves now. Okay, the album opens with a track written by Ringo and Joe Walsh. It's called Gotta Get Up to Get Down. Has a funky groove, pounding intensity. Now, Joe Walsh, surprisingly, has a lot of vocal on this track. At first, I was a little thrown by that, but now that I've played it several times, I really enjoy it. And he does do a slight rap, so it's kind of funny to hear Joe Walsh do a rap. Now, as everybody who knows me and my channel is aware, I do not like rap music. Can't stand rap music. However, I've always enjoyed when there's a little touch of it, a little flavor here. Even way back in like 1980 or so, I liked the Debbie Harry song, that Rapture that came out. I don't mind flirting with a little rap vocal here and there, because overall, despite the rap touches, this is still rock at its core. I tell you, if all rap music sounded like "Gotta Get Up to Get Down," I'd be a rap fan. Okay, that's how good it is. I would say that the words here kind of like are strange, because just imagine the Beatles in 1964. Could you imagine them? They had no idea what Facebook was, social media, right? Twitter. Who knew that eventually you'd have a Beatle, or ex-Beatle, I should say, actually talking about the state of social media? And that's kind of like what this song's about, from what I can tell. Uh, the words seem to be about that. But I really enjoy this. It's a great kickoff, a tough sound to the album, gets me in the mood. Then that's the first track, but the second track, after you get through hearing that, you get a really upbeat, zippy, kind of wonderful, happy pop rock song, and it's called "It's Not Love That You Want." This is co-written by Dave Stewart, Ringo and Dave Stewart together. And I got to tell you, I love Dave Stewart's guitar in this. It sounds really good. I love the horns and piano. There's a lot of horns on this, and I'm a big fan of horns in my pop rock music. Some people don't like the horns. To them, that's a done deal if they do that. To me, it really enhances it, and it just makes me feel good. This reminds me of other songs Ringo's done. On his albums, he very often comes up with songs like this, like love songs that are kind of like upbeat, and they really move along at a high tempo. And like an example that comes to mind from the album Postcards from Paradise would be a song called "Let Love Lead." Well, that's kind of what this reminds me of in a way, songs like that. But this time, even though you would think, hey, we go with familiar territory again, for some reason this time it really stands out as something its own and fresh. Then we go to the third track, and this is the only time, I kind of referred to this at the beginning, the only time that really the album kind of goes down a little slow. Uh, this is a song, "Grow Old With Me," that is a cover song. It was written by John Lennon. And some of you will know the history, some of you may not. It's pretty interesting. John Lennon had a set of demo tapes, which he had known as the Bermuda tapes, and the producer Jack Douglas, who did the Double Fantasy album with John and Yoko in 1980, actually presented this tape to Ringo. And Ringo has said in a recent interview you can find on YouTube that he was very touched because When he listened to the tape that Jack Douglas presented to him, at the beginning of the song Grow Old With Me, John said something like, "This was one for Richard Starkey. This is for you, Ringo." Paraphrasing words to that effect. And in the interview that's on camera, Ringo starts welling up, as I have to well up when I talk about that. He gets very emotional, and he said, "I have to do it. I have to cover it." Now, since then, on social media, we've all been talking, and a lot of people have said that, you know, Ringo may not be referring to the proper song. That's the only downside to that story. As good a story as it is, as touching as it is a possibility that he might have got it wrong or Jack Douglas got it wrong, because we all know from listening to the Lost Lennon tapes, a series that was out in the 1980s, that John Lennon made sure that he had said at the beginning of Nobody Told Me on a demo, he said this one could be for Richard Starkey or Ringo. You know, Nobody Told Me was a song that John was thinking about giving to Ringo before he died. So they could have got it mixed up, or maybe it's true. Maybe Jack Douglas has a different tape that we haven't heard where John says that about Grow Old With Me. But nevertheless, let's get to the song itself. I think this is such a touching, tender, emotional version. It just makes you really feel all teary in a way. I mean, it has a lot to do with the fact that, of course, John and Ringo were great friends. And, you know, you're talking about, you know, an ex-Beatle singing another ex-Beatle song. There have been versions out there that I've heard about, versions of this that are supposedly better by Glenn Campbell and especially Mary Chapin Carpenter. I've heard a lot about her version. I've never heard it. I don't doubt it's very good. But I really enjoyed the Ringo one. Like I said, it really hits you where you live. It really, just really emotional because of the John connection and Ringo being friends. That makes it, I think, a little more personal when he's singing it. I think Ringo does a great job on here. I think he really did his best. I don't think he could have done any better, to tell you the truth. There's supposedly strings on here that sound a little bit like George Harrison. I think at one point a George Harrison song, I think Here Comes the Sun, is referenced ever so subtly. I don't hear it. I've listened to this 6 or 7 times, so you have to excuse me there. But more importantly, Paul McCartney guests on this track, and how fitting is that? You know, Paul and Ringo together on a John song. Paul plays bass, and he also sings the backup vocal, a harmony on here. Unfortunately, you can't really discern that it's Paul. If you didn't know, you wouldn't even have any clue. So you don't really get to hear. It's a shame that Paul wasn't brought up somehow in the mix, even a little bit. I get that it's a Ringo song. People out there have been saying, well, it's not a Paul and Ringo song, it's a Ringo song. I get that. But go back to the first song, Gotta Get Up to Get Down. That's a Ringo song, and Joe Walsh is very prominent on that. So anyway, it would have been nice to hear a little more Paul, but it's beautiful anyway. The one thing, though there's a guitar solo in here that Joe Walsh does, and it seems to like he gets lost at some point for just a moment or something like that all over the place. But it's still a good serviceable version of here. It may be my favorite song on the album, but it's hard to tell because a lot of very good on here. I'll also throw in that somewhere on that song at about a little over 3 minutes, I want to say 3 minutes and 5 seconds around there, Ringo can sort of be heard saying, "God bless you, John." And it's very subliminal. And I say that because now I've heard this 7 times, and only one time, my third listen, I remember counting it. On the third listen, I was able to pick it up. All the other times I've never heard it, even knowing it was there. So if you don't know it's there, you're probably not going to hear it. But that's an interesting bit. Okay, now we go to pick up the pace again, as that's the only moment where we're kind of like just taken down for a slower number. We get back up with a really good song, a beautiful, beautiful song called Magic. Magic is not exactly an original title. Small thing to complain about, right? But maybe if they called it It's Magic or something, because that seems to be in the lyrics a lot, how he sings it in the chorus. It's got a beautiful chorus. When it starts, you know, I kind of think of the song from the Traveling Wilburys that George Harrison sang called Heading for the Light. The drums at the beginning and the kind of pace and the way it moves along kind of reminds me of that song, Heading for the Light. Almost a tropical beginning to it. It's got a good sentiment. The images are beautiful. There's a biting guitar solo by Steve Lukather. I should mention the song is co-written by Ringo and Steve Lukather first. And Lukather also plays a lovely piano bit. It's a very, very happy song. Okay, the fifth track on the album. Now here's the one that's going to divide a lot of people. It's a cover version of the Berry Gordy classic Money, That's What I Want. Of course, the Beatles covered it in 1963. Superb rockin' vocal by John Lennon back then. This is a song that I said to myself, why do we need another version of the song Money? Do we really need it? We had a really odd version by the Flying Lizards back like in the 80s, I think. And this is like a combination of the Flying Lizards and a little bit of kind of, I don't know, a modern sounding auto tune fest. Because Ringo, in the interview that I mentioned earlier, had also said that this version of Money is, quote, the closest I've come to rap, or what he said with a laugh. I don't think this is so much rap, but what he did say is that he wanted to do a new sound. He wanted to make this version sound like it's a new song from today, and he certainly did that. Um, and most people think it's a stinker. This song. I've heard most people think this is terrible. It's awful. But I have heard some people say, you know what? I like this. I like this version. For me, when I first heard it, of course, I was very like down on it. I said, "Oh, everybody's right. What I've heard is true. It's pretty awful." But now I find when I'm listening to the album in its entirety, I enjoy it. I enjoy it for what it is. If I was listening to it on its own, I wouldn't really want to hear it. But in the context of the flow of the album, it's welcome. He does auto-tune vocals, they're very robotic. You can hear his voice sort of slightly breaking up and being out of pitch and sequence. That's kind of like, or I suppose it means he stays in pitch, but it sounds like he's going here and there. That's auto-tune. And I'm going to take a moment to talk about auto-tune on Ringo's albums. Because a lot of people say to me they don't like Ringo's recent albums going back from several now because supposedly he's always auto-tuned. I won't dispute that. If you tell me he's auto-tuned and I don't hear it, I'll take your word for it because frankly, I don't pick up on auto-tune on Ringo albums, or if it is auto-tuned, it doesn't even faze me. I enjoy what I hear. But this particular track, Money, this particular version, this is blatantly auto-tuned. This one you can hear it even if you don't usually pick up on such a thing. So this one, yeah, I could hear the auto-tune. But you know, I don't mind it for one song, and the reason I say that is because, as I say, in the context of the rest of the album, it's fun, I think, when it comes along. Doesn't hurt the rest of the album. And I also realize that he's just trying to have some fun here and make it sound like a song from today. This is done deliberately, and it's done for effect, just to have some fun with it. So I can accept it. But still, out of the 10 songs that are on this album, Money is the weakest. Okay, next song is the sixth song, and it's called Better Days. And this song, Better Days, is in the running as my favorite song on the whole album. Okay, I absolutely really enjoy this song. Now, kind of a little surprised because when I was listening to the lyrics sounded like ideas that I've heard from Ringo before. Like Ringo was very into photography, and I don't have the lyrics here, so I'm going to try to do them, paraphrase them from memory. But stuff about take a picture quick right now, and kind of preserve the moment and let it last, because we're not all here, and then eventually we're going to be gone, and then we come around again, things like that. So Ringo's always been very interested in photography and taking pictures, making the moment last, and capturing it all. Um, so I thought that's pure Ringo, it's great. But then he also talks about coming around again, as in like the way I took it, maybe reincarnation. And I know that in 1981, Ringo appeared with his wife Barbara on the Phil Donahue show, and he talked about believing in reincarnation. So I thought Ringo's really putting his songwriting feelings down here. But then I looked to see who the author is, and the credit is just to Sam Hollander. Uh, there's another song here co-written by Ringo and Sam Hollander, but this track, Better Days, only has Sam Hollander listed. Kind of surprising, but I like the thought here. Take the picture, capture the moment, go around again, and be here. That kind of thing. Love the melody. The chorus is so catchy. I love the horns, the piano, the organ. There's female backing singers on here, I should mention, and they're very prominent here. You could hear, or at least one female singer here that I know of, echoing the phrases, that kind of old approach that they do, and it's used to good effect on this album. I like the female backing that you have here in some of the tracks. So this is really a happy song. I just love the sound of it overall. It's one of my favorites. Next song is another upbeat, up-tempo song called Life is Good. And that seems to be Ringo's philosophy in life a lot now. It's co-written by Ringo and also Gary Burr. It's very optimistic. It's upbeat. You know, we need a song like Life is Good today. As I said earlier, you know, things are so crazy in the world, and this makes you feel good. It makes you so happy when you listen to it. I love the bridge in this song too. You know, the directions that Ringo goes. I find that this song "Life Is Good" is stuck in my head. It's an earworm. It's one of the most catchy songs on the whole album. Okay, the eighth track on here, very much like the one we just talked about. It's called "Thank God for Music." These two are paired together in the sequence, but although they're kind of similar, they do have their own unique personality when you hear them. This is the song I was saying, co-written by Ringo and Sam Hollander. It's an ode to the power of music, how good it makes you feel when you hear it. I like some lyrics in here that kind of cover all the formats of records, 7/8, meaning 78s, 78, 33, 45. It's kind of in in the main line. How the music makes you feel. And Ringo's really living it. When he says thank God for music, you can tell he means it. Ringo's very sincere and into it on this entire album. Another catchy song, really upbeat. The ninth track on this record, we knew it was going to happen sooner or later, a song about peace. And it's called Send Love, Spread Peace. First thing I'm going to say is this song to me is more enjoyable than a song called People Want Peace that was on Paul McCartney's recent Egypt Station album. Ringo's done peace songs before. This one's co-written by Ringo and Gary Nicholson. Sure, it's another peace song. It's pretty good. Not the strongest track on the record, but it's another catchy one that stays in your head. Even though it's another peace song, it's a good one. I'd say it's his second best. My favorite peace song that Ringo did was from the Why Not album in 2010. It was called Peace Dream. That's my favorite Ringo peace song, but this one's a close second. Final track on the album is the title song, What's My Name, written by Colin Hay from Men at Work by himself. And this was written for Ringo because, you know, people, some of them don't understand, you know, the idea of having a song called What's My Name, where a chorus of people shout out, Ringo, is something that Ringo's been doing in concert since he started touring 30 years ago. You know, he'll step out there and he'll say, What's my name? And people will say Ringo. And he'll repeat that several times. I think this is probably the second weakest track overall. I'm kind of glad it's at the end of the album. I also think it fits as the last song. You know, it's kind of like you've heard the whole record, and the last song on here reminds you, hey folks, who are you listening to? Who am I again? Don't forget, Ringo. I like it at the end. It's still fun, upbeat rock. It's just nothing really that special about it. I think it's more of a novelty because the fact that Ringo does concerts and for some reason does not want to do a lot of new songs lately in his set list, he might think about doing What's My Name because obviously it has audience involvement. People can say Ringo. So that's it, folks. That's the opinion on here. I'm going to give this Ringo album a solid 8 out of 10. And I'm going to have a list here where I'm going to present to you what I feel on my tracks that I like. I'm going to do it probably on the side from my favorite track to my least favorite track in order of preference. So I don't know what else to say except go out and buy it. For those people that were kind of holding back and they're saying, I don't know, do I want another Ringo album that's the same old from him? This one's a notch above, a couple of notches above, and I heartily recommend it.